Well, hello all, I'm Sheena and I'm very pleased to be here. My new home with all you lovely crafty types with the best kind of crafting products that I'm a bit overjoyed to be able to share with you. What I thought, while we're getting to the point where I've got all this stuff that I've been working on and all these things in the background that I absolutely can't wait to share with you, and I don't know how I'm going to, but I'm going to try. What I thought was I would take this time to go through the things that I love to use, that you know that I talk about all the time. I'm talking about, I love pencils, watercolor pencils, I love my watercolors, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you why I love them and what the reason is behind the brands that I endorse and love and the stuff I use. If you come to my craft room, you will see, fortunately, all the stuff that's there for you to play with along with me in CraftStash. So that's what we're going to start off with. This video is one of my all-time favorites are watercolor pencils. And they're great because sometimes, you know, watercolors can look a little bit intimidating because they're kind of like go places you don't want them to go sometimes, and they look a bit arty. And if you've tried them before in the past, what sometimes happens is you'll think, oh, I've got the kids' watercolours. When they're not looking, I'll get them out, I'll give them a try. And often they're not the best because they're kids' watercolours. And then they're teamed with the most horrific, the devil's own paintbrush, which isn't going to let anybody use it in any successful fashion. So you think, oh, I was right, they're a little bit tricky. Well, we're going to come to watercolours as well. I've got that lined up. We're going to be looking at oil-based pencils. We are going to be looking at, well, we're using pens tonight as well. We're going to be using some of the Sakura Pigma pens. So it's all there to play with, and like I say, it's all really cool because I can take my time and I can explain why I like this product and how to use it to get the best out of it. Because, you know, you can have the best thing in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, it's worthless. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start off with, let me show you on the other camera what it's all about, what's happening here, what we're going to do. So I have created a little a digital drawing. Well, it's not a digital drawing, it was a drawing that I created, but it's in a digital fashion that may be available at some point for you. I'm not going to say any more, I've probably already said too much, but right now I've got it here to show you. This is what I have created, and the idea is it's cherry blossom little branch, and you can decomposition it and you can layer it up. Now I'm going to come back to this, and we're going to come back to that one when we look at pencils, oil-based pencils, and the Faber-Castell oil-based pencils to be precise, because I love the Faber-Castell range. And I'll explain that as we go along why. And it's not just, I'm not one of these people who want to just be told, yeah, get that one, or that's the best. Why is it the best? What makes it the difference to the other stuff that, you know, I might be able to save some pennies with? Is it good value in the long run? I want to know. That's what we're going to do. So this I'm going to park to one side. What I've done, and the reason I'm not colouring this one in with my watercolour pencils, I'll tell straight away, is it's printed on an inkjet printer straight away, and it's very black lines, very black writing. Now, it's a water-soluble ink. So if I use a water-soluble product like watercolours or watercolour pencils, it's going to bleed, right? But that's not a problem with oil-based pencils. We'll talk about using laser printers and things further down the line, but let me put that to one side. So what I've done instead is my printer, I made sure when I changed my printer that I made sure that it would take a really heavyweight GSM card, and this is watercolor card. So this is, it's 300 GSM, and because it's got a straight through feed, it will print it no problem. Now you'll notice from that black image here, oh, you got me on then, to that's what it would have printed out like. This is what I've asked it to print out like. The reason being, I want that there just as a guideline. That's just a shadow print. Imagine, you know, if you've done that, you know, like borderless colouring and things, that's what we're looking at, because what we're going to do is we're going to transform this, and you can change it and tweak it, and that's what we're going to do with the wonders of the Pigma pens to start with. So printed it out. The way I got it like that is I used my printer in about 20 to 30% opacity. Try 20, and if you can't see, like me, you know, should have gone to Specsavers. I did, and I still like have trouble. So I made it 30. This is 30% opacity. Have a look at your printer settings. If you can do that, that's great. Next thing, as I mentioned, I am using this set. This is a brilliant set. I wish you could, well, I will share at some point my pen collection. I am quite obsessive with the old collection of the pens. I've got many, many different fountain pens for drawing with. I've got the Fude nib pens, which are all kind of weird, and that's a whole other ballgame to talk to you about. But what I was looking for is a great beginner set. If you want a set of permanent markers, ink that won't blend, won't bleed when you are adding a watercolor wash, watercolor pencils in this case, or watercolors, or any of your other dye-based inks, this is a fabulous set because, let me show you just quickly, you've got a mechanical pencil. You need a mechanical pencil, and you've got an eraser usually in that end there. So you've got the mechanical pencil, but then you start off with the finest of fine line. Look at that. That's gorgeous. That's a 0.1. Then you go up to a 0.3. If you want, when I draw stamps, I am not using, if you look, the same weight of line for everything. I'll change the weight of the line. If it's something that's towards the top of a, say, a flower or a petal, it'll be a thinner line. So I'll use maybe the 0.1 type weight. But if it's towards the bottom and I want to suggest shading, I might be much darker like that, which is right up to a, this is a 1 from 0.1 to 1. But then you've got this absolutely fabulous, funky, look at that. That's a brush pen. So what you can do then, this is where manga artists and things love this, because it's pressure sensitive. So that's something we'll have a play with later. However, that's the set. Let me put it to one side. Absolutely, guys, if you're going to buy yourself, you're going to treat yourself to one set of pens, that's a really, really useful set. It's got something for just about every occasion. But the one I'm going to use is that 0.1, because what I want to do is go over this line that you can barely see, and the idea is that I don't want to see it. I want to draw over this, and I don't want to draw that detail. If you look closely, you'll see I've weighted the line. With this, I'm actually going to use that same weight of that finest pen line that's in that set, and I'm going to go over it like this. Notice that. Now, the thing is as well, right? Now I'm choosing how much detail I want to put in there. Do I want a lot? Do I want a little? If I wanted it to be sketchy, I can put very little in there. If I want it to be more detailed, I can go and start making a thicker line in places, but I'm not for this. What I am going to do though, is I'm going to add some dots in the middle. Now this is where really I could go up a pen size. Let's, even the one, look, if I want to go and make some darker dots in the center here, I can dot them around there, and I'm putting some dots outside that area, because that's where the little pollen bits, if you look at cherry blossom, and what I was going to say is, we're going to come back to that. If you wonder, when you get a stamp and you think, well, actually we're just drawing this, we're doing it ourselves, but when you come to thinking, how am I going to colour it in, don't think that you automatically know what colours they are. I don't even automatically remember how many petals I'm sharing here. I drew what I thought was a really cool daffodil once, and I went, oh yeah, that works, yeah, okay, that'll work fine. And then I realised that I'd missed a petal out. They actually thought they had just the, I've actually put an extra petal in that one as I'm talking, look, see. Realised that they didn't just have 5, they had 6 petals. So don't assume, check it out if you're not sure, and get it right like that before you continue any further. So you can see what I'm doing here. I've got a little, that petal's moving away. I can put a little bit like that. There's actual little marks underneath there that you can follow, or you don't have to. If you want to make this petal a bit bigger, look, I just did, I don't care. Yeah, me, what a rebel. I'm all wild, kinds of wild and crazy. See? And then you can actually, look, you can make that bit bigger if you want there. We can extend this leaf a bit bigger if we want to. That's the beauty of just having the stamp there as a guide. So what I've done is I've continued like this, take your time. It's your call. You don't feel you're following this to the letter, because that's the fun of it. You're making it your own. You're using the image, my image, as a blueprint. I think if you start with it correct, if it's kind of, you know, correct to that flower, if it's drawn as that particular botanical representation would be, then you can go off piste and have fun with it. And that's exactly what crafting's all about, isn't it? So we're going to do this, and I'm just not going to do too much more, but you can see a little one there I've missed, and put some dots there, if that's the one coming behind there. Just little ripply bits in the petals to suggest that there's some shading in there. That's going to help you shortly when we come to colouring. We'll put that bigger pen, the bigger dots in the centre, because that's where that pollen's going to be more dense, and in the very middle. And then we'll use the little one to just draw out little kind of firework style from the centre, and now we've got the start of the cherry blossom. Now the good thing is I have one I prepared earlier, so we'll pop that to one side. Just continue. There's little bits here that you can do as well if you want to decoupage it. So I'm going to pop that to one side, and I'm going to come to that one there. That's the one I already prepared for you, but not too much detail. No cross hatching. When I draw for stamps, I will more often or not do some cross hatching to suggest some shading for you. So by cross hatching, if I had a petal, a petal like this, and the flowers come around like that, and I've got the dots in the middle like this. Alright, so really quick, but just to give you the idea, I would maybe, if I've got the little ripply bits here, like that, I might think, oh, to give it a bit more kind of shading, to suggest this one, I might do a little bit of cross hatching like this on your stamp to say that's where the shadow is going to be on that petal. And it gives it more realism. It looks like you've got that shadow and things going on. That's actually just hatching. Cross hatching is if you want it even darker, and you would do it not just that way, but that way. But this is the fun you can have with these pens. Look, you can just have a little bit play with them. However, I haven't done that because we're going to really concentrate all on the watercolour pencils for this one, and this is where now I get to tell you, hopefully that's given you the idea of why that's a good set of pens, and I would absolutely recommend that set. Now I'm going to talk to you about colouring in. Before you start to colour in, like I said, when I was drawing that daffodil, I figured I knew, you know, the trumpety bit in the middle, it's kind of a giveaway. Not that many that look like that. However, I had the wrong number of petals. Can I say it again? How many times? I'm never going to let it lie, am I? Well, it's the same when you colour in. Have a look. Do some research. If you've got we're lucky, we've got some lovely gardens around us that we can take pictures and we can look at, and obviously not all around the year, but if you're got your phone and you'd like to snap pictures, brilliant reference. If not, have a look and get some reference pics and just look at the colours, look and see what this colour's like. So what I wanted the stronger colour, this deeper pink. You can get that really pale, almost kind of white cherry blossom, but I thought I'd go for the dark colours. And the other thing as I wanted is, if you look at the background, plays a big part in this. That wouldn't have anywhere near as much drama if it wasn't for this really dark, diffused background around it. So bearing that, keep that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look, I've got the combination of the three of them, and I'm going to then go to my pencils and choose what colours I think I'm going to use. Now, this is the set I'm going to use for this demonstration. I would say as a starter set, absolutely the 24 set is a fabulous set to go for, because it's got lots of colours in it. You're not going to be limited, but you really don't have to invest in a massive kind of payout to get the whole story. Having said that, hello, guess what? That's like, yeah, well, I've had that for a while. This is the mothership, right? This is the one that you've got like, look at this, you've got 3 layers like that. That's a lot. And as a beginner, and even as a not beginner, it can be overwhelming. Because here's the thing, guys, with watercolor pencils, like watercolors, you mix them. Technically, you need 3 primary colors. You need a red, a yellow, and a blue, right? You know your printer at home, you get magenta, cyan, and yellow, and you make all those. You can bring photos with that. That in theory is the same with watercolors and pencils. So this is still more than you need. And you see there's some missing because I've already taken some out. So when you get your pencils, the reason I'm loving the Faber-Castell, and these are the Albrecht Dürer ones, this is the artist quality. This is the top of the line. It doesn't get any better than this. This is it. And these are the ones that I use, love, and have for years, endorsed. And I love that I can share that with you and tell you why. With this set, the artist range, is what you're paying for is intense pigment. First of all, you want, when you look at your pencil, right, a lot of the pencils out there can look bright and vivid, and they look great when they're in the pencil. But when you come to dilute them, you'll find that there's maybe more filler than pigment in there. What you can do is you can bulk out the pigment by putting more of a filling agent in there. And maybe they don't, the leads aren't soft, maybe they make a mark in the paper, maybe they won't blend when you add the water, they don't release the pigment. These absolutely do, but what you're paying for, there's another set in the Faber-Castell range, which are the Gold Faber ones, which are also gorgeous. They do all of those high pigment, they're soft, they're released, they don't etch into the card when you add water. But the difference, what you're paying for with these ones, is the light fastness. So I always say, go for the best you can afford, but you don't have to get them all, because the other good thing about this range is they have what they call open stock. So if you start with this set here, and then you have your your ambition is to go for eventually the mothership, right? If you can't invest in the mothership initially, you can then buy additional pencils as you go, and you'll find there's ones that you use more than others. Ones will go down more than others. There'll be ones that you'll maybe use now and again, but you'll have a core few colours that you just keep coming back to. Now, next thing to do, make a colour chart. Absolutely essential. That's what I've done here. Make it on the kind of card that you're going to be using. With the artist quality, you'll find that the representation on the pencils and the cores are quite close to what they actually look like, but still they're not exactly the same. So have a scribble, add water, and then you can see if I kept adding water, that's how you get your pastels. So that's my reference colour chart. I'm going to put that to one side. I'm not going to say too much more about the pencils at the minute. They're going to go to one side, because what I did next was I checked out and picked some colours. So I looked at the pictures. If you look at the pictures here, and I looked at my colour chart, and I thought, right, where am I starting here? If I'm looking at this picture here, I've got that colour. There's a really good dark colour. Can you see if I match that to there? That is almost identical for that shadow colour, yeah? It doesn't represent as much in here, maybe in the centre of these flowers, okay? The pale pink, obviously it's quite pastel, and it's not as, that's a warmer kind of colour, that's a bit cooler. So that's the one I kind of plumb for, deep red scarlet. So that is going to be the base of the flowers. I'm going to use some purple for the centre, for the very centre of this. I'm going to use some of this one here, which is the pale geranium lake, for that little bit around the centre. That's going to be the colours, first of all, I'm going to use for my blossom. So let me show you how that's going to work. So we'll bring the card now. I've already started. This was what I did to experiment, to try it out. You don't just automatically know what you're going to use. You've got to give it a try. So I'm going to use one of these Royal and Watercolor brushes. You know what? It's like, can you remember that Charlie Says, that infomercial thing when we were kids with the cat that talked? Every time I tried to say that on TV, that's what I hear in my head. Charlie, or the cat. So from now on, just know they're known as R&Ls. So this is really important. You're going to be shocked at how little you use. That's where the investment comes in as well. And another good tip is, if you tend to be heavy-handed, heavy pressure, hold your pencil further back, because you will be surprised at how little and how soft you can hit the card with this, and you're going to get loads of colour. So I'm holding it way back and I'm just putting a little bit splodge of colour. You're not colouring in with watercolour pencils, you're kind of popping a bit of pigment sort of where you want it to be. So I'm doing that there. That's sort of where I want it to be there. What I want as well is, with true watercolours, you don't use white. The white is the card, or it's kind of like a creamy card because watercolour card here. So try, if you can, and leave a little bit of card showing through. If you look there, I managed to leave a little bit there on these bits. But there's ways around that. We can fix it. We can come back. There's gel pens, there's gouache, there's all kinds of things we can do to help you out if you do lose that. Next thing, use a proper brush. By that I don't mean a water brush. I don't know if you can see here, but I've got a big thing of clean water and I've got my paper. What you'll find I'm doing more often than not is I dip the paintbrush in the water and then I blot it, because you need hardly any water to activate that pigment, and just little round circles like that. Now look at how much control I've got there. Look at how pretty that is. So again, same thing, start in the white bit, nudge up to the colour, little circles, don't overblend it because I want that little bit of shade in there. I want that variation. Can you see? It's gone, ooh, pop of colour. That's what you are investing in. That's the beauty of your top quality, artist quality product. So I'm going to leave that little bit of white there, and then I'm going to come in like that again, and I'm going to, if it feels a little bit wet and it's running, just clean your brush and blot it a little bit more on your paper. Now you've got a really pretty shaded piece of blossom. The same on these little buds just there, like that. Okay, leave a little bit of white, and I'm thinking maybe have it a bit darker. Let's do that one a little bit there so it's a little bit darker in the background. So I've pulled it around a little bit more, and that one there. So there's a little bit of a highlight on the one that's coming at the front. And again, just keep that. So you don't need expensive brushes. You really don't. Buying a £25 sable brush isn't going to make you £25 better at using that said brush than an R&L. If you there's a limit to you know, being economical with them, but this range of brushes I've used for years. They're just so dependable. They form a point better than I do a lot of the time, it's got to be said, but they don't cost a fortune. And there's a really good CraftStash set that I've discovered that has got lots of brushes to play with. So you can see how now we've got that really pretty watercolory look there. Now here's the thing, if I want to start to shade that and intensify some areas, I can take my colours and I can go back over. But if I wanted to add some darker colour there now and I went over with the pencil, that pencil is going to grab because that card is still damp. So a way around that is to get a bit of scrap card, scribble some of your pencil like this, right, onto that card, and now we're going to use it like a watercolour palette. So almost dry brush, picking up, look at that pop of colour, and then you look at that. Whoa! How high was that? Willow, only Willow in the house could hear that. No other human could have heard that. It was off the charts in pitch, that one was. All the dogs in the neighbourhood heard it. So we've got that there. So can you see now we've got a little bit of more shading in there. Another thing, if you wanted to take advantage of that colour grabbing, so say, you know, in the middle, I like that little highlight in the middle, but maybe I want that really intense dark centre. Well, what you can do is add a little bit of water to that middle there, like that. And then I'll take this purpley colour and I'll go over like that. And look, whoa, pop of intense colour. And then I can, what's happened is it's grabbed all the pigment grabbed it into the fibres of the card, and it's kind of set it so that it's going nowhere. It's stuck now. Now the other thing is I can use that, sharpen your pencil, and then while it's still wet, if I pull these little lines out, I'm going to get a really intense, strong line because of the wet card. I wouldn't, if I wanted to blend a background, I wouldn't want that. that wouldn't be a good thing. So that there is giving you an idea of how we're going to use the pencils in just one little bit of blossom. But let me show you what we're going to do next. So we have got the, where did I put me flower that we're going to cut? There it is, underneath my pencil. So when we come back to the picture, what makes that blossom look like it really pops is that background. If you look at those little ones that we just coloured in, they look pretty, and that's a lovely look. If you want a clean, pretty, bright, clean card, that's fabulous. But if you want drama, the reason that's dramatic, and actually they all are, look at that one, is the background. Look at how dark that is. It's the darkest of almost black here to green to a kind of a sagey green to blue to strong blue here. That's what I'm going to show you how we're going to do now. So a couple of ways you can do it. I think this, well, yeah, no, let's do it this way. Right, decide what colours you're going to put in the background. I chose these 3 colours, right? I've got, I have here walnut brown. I've got the helio blue reddish. I love that colour. Helio blue reddish. I love the reddish bit. Oh, and I love this, look. Earth green yellowish. You know, it's a bit reddish, a bit yellowish. Yeah, I know, ish. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil and you're going to scribble. Now this is where the beauty of watercolour pencils are, rather than your watercolours, because if you're new to watercolours, getting them to behave and stay where they're at, there's things we'll talk about when we start playing with them, it can be a bit tricky for a beginner, right? Whereas this, let's go nowhere. It's like, right, I want a bit of brownish-y colour there. It's not called brownish, but it is now, because everything else is ish, isn't it? Walnut brown. We'll put a bit of brown there. When we put another little brown down here, and actually if you add this brown in the blue, you get that almost black tone. So we'll pop some in there like this. I've got another one that we've moved on with as well, so we can continue and show you that. So can you see I'm going right up to, in a controlled fashion, my blossom, because I don't want to catch that blossom, because the thing is if you get colour on there, it's really tricky to get it away off there. Okay, so you really are it's easier to not put it there in the first place than to try and remove it, if that makes sense. So we'll pop a little bit there like that, and let's try a little bit of this blue. Now look at that pencil, that's huge. That's the normal pencil. With this set, they had one of these huge mothership pencils attached to it. They've got certain colours that you can also go for, which you know, popular colours, which are, the leads are thicker again, so they go further. Look at that. So I'm going to use that as it was there because I wanted that blue anyway. So what I'm doing is I'm going, now I'm not going to do the whole thing because I've got ones at different stages to show you, but I'm hoping this is helping, because this is this is important stuff that when you're doing a TV show, more often than not, it's about a new stamp set, new dyes, and whatever. And the colouring products are as important as anything else you're doing, because, you know, if you haven't got the right stuff to colour it in with, or you've got it but you don't know how to use it, then 'tis all for naught, don't you think? So having the time to be able to do this and explain why is what I think the best way we can spend our time while we're building up to all the new stuff that we've got in the pipeline. It's setting the foundation. It's letting you actually finally see why I get excited about these things. And I'm really excited because this was one of the big reasons, you know. CraftStash was like, they're the people that I have found I am home. Yeah, you know, bless them. It's like, oh, only me again. Yeah, great, she's found her home. Well, hey. But the thing is, the reasons, not just that they're fabulous people, and not just because they're everything else about them with their quality products and everything and what they do, support and everything else, it's the products they've got. When I saw on the CraftStash site, all these Faber-Castell products, you've got all the range of products, you've got your Van Gogh, or Van Gogh, as my art teacher used to say. She was from north of the border. Watercolours. I was like, yes, thank you. I can now sing it from the rooftops. So that's what I'm actually going to be doing and sharing and all good stuff like that right now. That looks pretty horrible. And you know what? If that's what you're thinking, fair dues, right? Yeah, you're not wrong. It ain't pretty, right? Looks yuck. But this is the fun bit. This is where it's like becomes now like magic painting. So you've got all that colour there. Now watercolour technically only should go where there's water. So because I want this to blend out around the outside, it's going nowhere till it gets wet, right? So if I don't put water on these flowers, these bits I want it to go on, unless I paint on it, it technically shouldn't go there. But I do want it to bleed outside that area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put water all the way around this outside bit. And you can see already it's starting to wick that colour that's there. And that's what I want because I don't want a harsh line. Okay, so by putting that there, then coming in and pulling that colour out, and then carefully just going up to my image, using a bigger brush here, by the way, but bigger brush, but with a really great point. I'm getting that really wishy-washy, diffused, looks like, you know, when you do that depth of field photography, which is kind of why they look really cool. That's what the photographers have done. They've used that where the background becomes all diffused. It's all foliage and sky behind it, but you don't know that because all you see is lovely, dark, fuzzy, pretty colours. That's what you want to happen there. So see, this is what they call a loose watercolour technique. That now that's great, but if you're doing a whole thing that's loose watercolour, you can just go for it and splash colour on and that's great. But we don't want the whole thing to be loose watercolour, so we're using the loose watercolour technique in a controlled fashion. Now the good thing is, if it does look a little bit static, or you want to make it darker in places, that's exactly what you can do, and what I did. And I'm going to show you the one that I've got. I moved on to earlier. So can you see? Hopefully that there has shown you how the background works. But look, it hasn't gone onto my flower. It started to bleed and wick away where I don't want it to be. Fabulous. What it has done, it's left a little bit of that graininess where the blue is. Funnily enough, it just did. I think it's just the blue thing. So what you can do while it's wet, if I go over and try to blend that blue out there, oh, disaster, remember the middle of the flowers? It's going to grab it even more. So what I do, I can get my piece of scrap watercolour card and give it a good scribble like that. Now I like to turn it around so when I'm scribbling it, I'm still trying to keep a point on the pencil. And I can, even when it's still wet, pop some more blue in there. In fact, it's a good time to do it when it's still wet because it'll smoosh in with the rest of it a little bit better, and you're losing more of that grainy kind of granular little effect that blue's just left behind. So it's more, it looks like paint. It doesn't look like, there's no way I would look at that and think, whoa, that's watercolour pencil. And that's where the quality pencils come in. All right, now I've moved ahead. And that's exactly what I did to build it up, and I'm still building it up. Let me show you here where we're going with this one. This has got all those things I've just talked about in stages. So flowers still yet to paint, so we're going to do that. We're going to take that, the colour that we said was the deep scarlet red, and we're going to continue with what I just said. Tiny little bits of colour, just here and there, just a little bit, like that. And on these ones here, just a wee bit. And you know, if you do get a little bit of paint over, there's a little, it's caught a couple of these flowers, the petals and the buds, but that doesn't matter. It's a watercolour at the end of the day. Alright, so we've got that there. Now, yeah, let's just blend that bit first. So can you see this top bit here is a little bit more developed? We've gone from not much going, well, nothing going on really in the pen there. We've got the background down here, but this has still got darker intensity here. This has been built up a little bit more. This is where your watercolour artists and watercolourists, you think it's all done in one hit, unless it's really loose. Wash watercolour with a bit of a pen and ink, which I like to do actually. Pen and ink and wash is great because it is quick. It's usually not. It's built up in layers, what they call glazing, which gives you that intensity of colour, and that's what, in the contrast, that's what you're looking for, is contrast. Because if everything's just overall tone, when you look at it from a distance especially, everything starts to look flat. So you want to have, it's all about the light and shade, bits of white card still showing, and then really dark tones where you want that shadow, where it looks like there's no light getting in there. And that's what's going to give it that interest in the pop. I've got all the cherry blossom just about there. I think that's that. We'll do the centre. So remember, we put a little bit of water in the centre of them, just a touch. I think that's it for that. And then we'll use that dark purplish, I don't remember what it is, magenta. I think of the Rocky Horror Picture Show whenever I think of magenta. Divine. If you've seen it, you're with me. If not, just let it go. Those of you who are new to Sheena Land and Sheena World will get used to that quite quickly. Alright, so we'll do that there. And then we'll pop a little bit of, to blend that little bit out there. Don't want to blend the purple too much. And then this dark will bring these little stameny bits out with the purple to give it a bit more drama with the dots. Because it's wet, it's going to grab the paint. See, it's grabbing the core of the pencil more and making it look more dramatic. Right, so we've got that there. Right, now the leaves are really good fun. The leaves are brilliant because you can really go to town. When you look at the pictures on here, they're not even green. Look, they're like a rusty, reddy, pinky kind of browny colour. Right there. That one as well, look, rusty kind of pinky browny, kind of bit more greeny on that one. So what we can do is, let's pick out some colours. We're going to use that, we're going to use this green, and we're going to use the red that we just used. That's what's going to give it that rustiness. All right. So what I'm going to do first of all, always start with your lighter colours, and we'll pop some yellow there. Let's pop some yellow. That's going to give it that warmth and rustiness when it mixes with the others. So don't be too shy with using the yellow colour. Not everywhere though. We want some darker just in the base of these leaves. I'll pop some like that. Notice how careful I'm not being, because I don't need to. We'll do the stem as well. Oh, well, it's not a stem, it's a branch, isn't it? Hello. Do that on there. And then we'll use some red. Like that. And what's going to happen is that green, if we go back to the colour chart, you'll see it's really, really vivid, this green. I think it's emerald green they call it. I shouldn't tell you that. With the Faber-Castell range, the good thing is the colours all carry through the range. So if you're using the watercolour pencils, the oil-based pencils, the polychromos, the watercolour markers, all the colours, if you're used to a certain colour and matching it, and if you're going to use a bit mixed media with all those things, which we will be, just saying, then you know that that colour is going to be the same with whatever medium that you're using within that range. So a bit of green in there and on there. Now, if you want to tone down a green, the easiest and best way to do it, if it's like whoa in your face, like very there, is to add a bit of red to it. If you keep going with that in red, you're going to end up with brown. But we don't mind that with this as much, because remember we said those leaves were very rusty coloured and browny. Anyway, so watch what happens here when you add the water to these. So not much on your brush, almost dry brush. Start where the yellow is first, little circles, and you see the colour pop, and then we're going to pull in the red. Look at that. And then that green's coming in, and it's going to make it really dark. Whoa! All those. That's why you don't need, 100 and odd colours to start with, unless you want them. Because I just like to look at them. I like to, wait till you see the, wait till you see the other set. Well, these are, you see, I should say as well, I qualify, these are birthday gifts, Christmas gifts and things. And so, you know, special occasions, there's a big investment, but, you know, that's when I got mine. Yeah, the Polychromos set is, that is like the mothership. So, can you see how we've got now? We can, this is just the first layer. This doesn't mean this is where we're staying. Also, I should mention that whenever you're using watercolours, they're always going to dry paler than they originally look. So be aware of that. So this is where that layering thing comes in, the glazing, the adding different, you know, another layer to it. And a little bit more yellow on there. We'll grab that there. And now what we're going to do is, we can see that what I want is, you see here we've got much more contrast. So what's achieved that is a couple of things. I'm going to go back up here because this is starting to dry now. If it's not dry, get your heat gun. If you're going to layer and put some pencil direct to that paper again and dry it. I'm going to do that really quickly, and I'm not going to talk because you won't hear me, but I'm just going to do a quick blast. So that should now be okay to start using pencil on top of again. Now, what I'm going to do, can you see this is a bit darker, this area here? I'm going to use that magenta, and I'm going to do a little bit of shading with that. And I'm using my scribbly, there we go, scribbly palette. And I'm going to scribble some on like this. I'm also going to go directly onto the stem because this is where I want this really dark and some really dark shadowy areas down here. Can you see? The stem again, the branch, hello. Like that. I want it quite, it's again, it's about the contrast, and that's what's going to make it look really cool, is when you start getting, if you can't make things lighter, then you make something a bit darker. But we are going to make it lighter as well at some point, because it's what I've actually done here in bits. So a little bit of that magenta, the very base of those leaves that we've just done, and continuing down we'll do it like this. And you could even bring some detail in with the where the veins are in your leaves, like that, little stems. It's again the drama we're going for. Oh, the drama. Alright, like that. So that's ready to activate in an intense way because I've scribbled straight on there, but I still want to shade my blossom a little bit in a more subtle way. So the subtle way is to take your brush again, take a little bit of colour, make sure you haven't got too much on, and then look at those little ripples we've created when we did that little line. So if you take just a little bit of your magenta. Remember when I did the cross hatching and it looked so much better because it suggested there was some movement in the petals and some shading, and bits were darker, some bits were darker than others, and that's where, see how much better that looks? That's where we're putting this magenta now to give it that same effect. If I put the cross hatching on, you would never lose the cross hatching with the pen. The pen wouldn't go anywhere. That's why stamps, when you cross hatch with them, they look great, but when you, unless you use a water soluble ink, they're there all the time. But you do need them to suggest that, you know, that shading. But in this case, we didn't, because we knew that we were going to do that with the paint. I'll definitely have that darker in there. Don't be scared to use the colour, to make it, you know, to just go for it. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, if that one was not your finest moment, it's a bit of card, and you've learned what not to do the next time. That's the best way to look at it, I think. So All right, we're not doing bad here. We've got that. And we can go over that again. We can make these bits, some bits darker again. That is making that look, now you see it's starting to look more 3D. It's starting to pop in bits. Oh, we want a little bit there. This bit here needs a little bit around there. Just that front bit pops out a bit more. Now we've got to activate those bits that we scribbled on here with that purpley colour. So be careful of that. Use an almost dry brush because you really want to just have this where you put it. Can you see how dark that is in there? You don't want that running away from you. So if it starts to, if you think, oh, a little bit of a splodge, just dry your brush quickly and come back and it'll pick up the water. Your brush will pick up that water. And just continuing like this. You know what? I was like, the plan was we'll make this about an hour. We might be on to 3 now. I don't know. But you know, it is what it is. It can be edited. We might edit it. You'll see. Hopefully, it's been useful to you because you know I love crafty, fun products. I love them, just like you. I get, you know, I have to try them. I want to play with them. But at the core of everything I do, the stuff that is the foundation of everything I keep using and coming back to are my artist quality products like this because they just do the job. Right, so I've got that there, but you can see around here is still darker. It's still got more drama. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in with this 2 colours, the brown and the blue around my flowers. All right, like this. It's quite dark around there, and this is where you can get right up to your flowers now. And this is hopefully now where it's going to make them pop even more. Let's do that side and then you can see what. So this is creating almost a black around the outside of this. Right, so get your brush and then just carefully go up to that and then just drag it out. So again, almost dry brush, and you can see just light pressure and come your hand onto the mat so that it gives you some, you know, steadies your hand, and just right into there. And that's where now the light's not showing, which it wouldn't if it was in nature. You're not going to see right into that, and that's why when you just draw one flower and it looks okay when it's a stamp, but in reality it looks so much better. It's because you've got all that dense foliage and you can't see it. So that's, I think, almost, and I'm going to have to look at it myself and see what. Yeah, you know, you could have one side a bit lighter, a bit darker than the other. That would work fine. Right, lastly, if you've lost a little bit of your highlight and you think, okay, I need to put a little bit light back on, let me try this just quickly. We're going to use a gel pen. You could use gouache as well, and we're going to use a little bit of white pencil and see if it'll work as well in a way I want to try it. So we'll try this. Years ago when I was doing a live dem, I used to, you know, turn my card around like that, and people say, "Why are you trying the back of the card? That's not the most interesting bit to look at." And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that it flattens the card out if you do that. Now my white gel pen has decided it's not working out. Right, got it. If your card's a little bit wet, you know that your gel pen has trouble, doesn't it? And any gel pen, it does. It's not its fault. It's the card's still a little bit damp. So, you know, we'll let it go. So if you've lost a little bit of a highlight and you want to pop it back, you can go in with a little bit and get a little bit of texture in the dots here, the dots, the pollen in the middle. Don't go too much on it though. Don't get carried away with the gel pen, because you want to use it quite sparingly, because again it's all about that contrast you've created. You can maybe pop a little bit on the top of this leaf here, and you could even give it a look like those little bits on the top of that, and maybe that one there. So in watercolour, technically there isn't a white, or even though there's a white pencil, because watercolour artists use the paper as the white, because it's transparent. Watercolours are meant to be transparent, translucent, and it's up to you. You can make them strong. There's some amazing modern watercolour artists that use strong colour and it looks fantastic. You know, just different styles, different approaches. Don't you know, there's rules are there to be broken on stuff, so don't think there's only one look in that loose, you know, washy watercolour look, because there really isn't. So they're just paints at the end of the day. So yeah, just use them as you want to use them. But the thing is if it's not strong enough, if you want a stronger tone, stronger colour, just build it up, and don't be scared to add more colour, because the thing is, the other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be using mixed media. So a future thing I want to show you is using polychromos oil-based pencils with watercolour wash backgrounds or watercolour underneath them, because you know when you're blending oil-based pencils, it can take quite a while to get that that blend. You know, if you don't want to, I don't like to see the grain of the card underneath, unless that's the look I'm going for, and I'm specifically trying to get that. So I like to, one way to get around that is we'll be using them with watercolours underneath them. So watch out for that's another one I want to bring with you. Right, so we've got that there. That's looking like it's got a bit of contrast to it now. The other way you can use your pencils is, and I'm not sure if this will work, it depends how opaque this white is you can take your pencils and you can flick colour like that off them. Now, I fear that nothing's happening at all. We'll use a darker colour, just add a bit of texture to it, because the white, yeah, we might, to do this, we'll probably have to use maybe a white gouache or a white ink. Yeah, let me see if we can get that a little bit more activated. Be careful when you do this. The worst thing you can do, there's some colour coming off it now there. Can you see? Little pollen dots, not much. What we'll do is we'll get some, where's my gouache? Bear with, please. Bear with, caller. I've got gouache everywhere. Yeah, here we go. There's some gouache. We'll put a darker colour on anyway. Let's do that with a darker colour. It might ruin it, but you know what? It's mine. It doesn't matter. It's all in the sake of like sharing. If that, you know, if mine looks rubbish, yours doesn't have to. Let's put that colour there. Let's try that. There, can you see? Some little dots on it. See, whoa, isn't that cool? But don't ever put your pencil leads in water. Make sure when you've done that you dry them as well. Dry it off again. So that gives you a little bit more texture in the background, and we can do the same with a little bit of white gouache. Now, sometimes you'll have like white gouache is a good partner. Let's separate that. Sometimes when you've had them a while, that can happen to your watercolours, because technically what it is, you know, white has to be opaque to be white. So it's kind of like a white watercolour is a kind of weird kind of thing in my head, in my mind. So if it's a white watercolour, it's more likely a gouache, and that's what this is. So it's a good addition to your any watercolour pencils, any watercolour paints, is a white gouache, which is an opaque, thick white, which should. Let's use a bigger brush. Right, you know what? You're gonna lose your whole day, evening, whatever, to me just trying to put a few white spatters on this. Right. Yes, thank you. Oh, we can all go and you can get on with your life, so you have it back. All right, can you see? Gosh, we're trying to dark a bit there. all just adding a bit of texture, a bit of interest to it. Watch, because again, be careful with this. I'm not being that careful just because I'm determined to get some colour on there. But you don't want meteorites if you can help it. You don't want shooting stars, right? You want dots. Okay, so the fan brush is a good brush to use for that technique. But hopefully that hasn't been too taxing for you for the first thing I've shared with you. And we've got lots more to come. So I will thank you for that. I've had fun, I've enjoyed doing it, and I've enjoyed being able to tell you all the bits that I think, oh, I wish I could get that out in the time I've got during shows and things. So that's what we've created together with a watercolour pencil type effect. Now that you can put on a card for sure, but I would put it on a card and make sure it's not super attached to the card, because that then would be, if it was one of my cards, what my wonderful team make for me now and again, I keep them and I take them off the cards. That could then be laminated like, you know, a new journal cover or put in a frame. Beauty of this is you can put that in a frame. You've used artist quality, fade resistant pigment colours. You can't get the Albrecht Dürer, Faber-Castell watercolour pencils. That's what your posh artists use. That's why they use them. So if you're going to do it, you're going to put it in a frame, you might as well use the good stuff that isn't going to fade. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you the next time. Yay, bring it on.